It's impossible to be vegan. I mean, we try our best, but there's no way you can be truly, fully, wholly. So yeah, everybody tries their best. I started very, very much not vegan. My dad was in the meat industry. I used to shoot and fish, and I used to like that, and I shot many, many animals. Nobody's asking the animal, oh, are you okay with being organic? Yeah. Is it okay with you? Or free range, all these. Yeah, we always get back to that. Yes, I have a vision that the way ahead is that farmers are supported to become sanctuaries. The government aren't going to do that. The vegan community have to do that. Farmers are the answer to everything. How do we expand the amount of sanctuaries around that starts to become more into people's consciousness, that actually it's not just a given that the animals that you see are for the table.
Hello and welcome to the Viva podcast. I'm here today with Mark at Amberwood Sanctuary, and we are also joined by Olive. We're going to be talking to Mark about his life, how he became vegan, how he started the sanctuary, and any of his future plans as well. Welcome, Mark. Hello.
Welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you for
welcome to this place. Yeah.
No, we're in the barn. Yeah. Very exciting. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, it's simple, but how did you go vegan? Tell me your basic vegan story.
Okay. Well, over many, many years, I think I guess the thing to say is I started very, very much not vegan. Yeah. So my family, when my dad was in the meat industry, meat trade, I guess. He was an auctioneer, ran cattle markets. I used to work there as a boy. I used to shoot and fish and all these things. I used to like that, I was an avid shooter, and I shot many, many animals. And I guess my grandfather's a butcher, so I knew how to sort of process the Christmas turkey, and that was my experience. But then, as I got older, I was a soldier. I joined the army. I've had a whole life of a lot of things, but I guess specifically, I think I've just been exposed to different things. I went to London. I was an actor. Came into contact with different people, but I think also I've been on a bit of a healing path for the last 15 years from my own personal stuff. And that's introduced me to plant medicines and different kind of communities that really are nurturing compassion and kindness and healing in oneself. So that's been my overall trajectory over the last sort of just over 50 years. But then I moved to the countryside from London 13 years ago, and it was the reconnection with the countryside after leaving for 20 years, and my perception changed, and I noticed the cows in the field, and I noticed what was happening to them, and I became friends with them, and I found them very beautiful, and you develop relationships with them. And then the time came for the calves to be separated, and you could hear it, and this all started to kind of just sort of work on me. I got a dog and a cat, and they became my sort of children, and I had already started to become a vegetarian because of my relationship with the cows in the field. And
were these beef cows?
These were beef cows, yeah. And they weren't in a terrible situation compared to some. They were as good as they were looked after, but still it was the reality sort of hit me in a way that I wasn't even aware of before.
Yeah.
And yes, and then unfortunately my little dog Seamus, he died when he was 3, and I kind of had a tremendous grief for him, and that's when I kind of really sort of just realised, I had that moment of going, oh my God, they're all the same. How can I have been segmenting off these different species for all these years? And then I became vegan pretty much immediately. So I've been vegan for nearly 8 years now.
Wow, yeah. So there's so much to unpack there.
Oh yeah, I'm left out a lot. I did say trauma at one point, but I don't. But
there's so much to unpack there. But the first thing I wanted to ask about, because I think it's really interesting from a vegan perspective and also from a non-vegan perspective, because I think people don't know about it, is the auction houses, like, you know, I've been in auction houses as a vegan, tried to talk to these farmers and build connections, but, you know, you actually were working in them. How did that feel? Like, do you have?
Well, I was a boy. I mean, I was like, you know, sort of 10, 11 years old. And I used to work with the calves because I was a calf myself. And I used to work with these couple of old boys. I was just helping Dad. For me, it was just, it was great. And it was just, this is what we did.
Yeah.
But you know, the calves were coming from the dairy industry. They were coming in and they were literally a week old, struggling to walk. And I was sort of pushing them into the pens, and then it was all just stuff that one did. I had no identification with the animals. And then I used to help push them into the sale ring. I mean, the thought of it now is just sort of, my God, that's just insane.
But I guess when you're young, you just...
Yeah, exactly. The reality is you've got all these animals coming into the centre of a town in trucks, lots of noise, and they just get pushed into these sort of little pens, and of course it's terrifying. I mean, the more you get to know animals, these farmed animals, the more you know how sensitive they are, and then all that experience, that memory of what was happening in the livestock market back then and still is just even more sort of difficult, because I know how stressed they get, even when I stress them out, you know, and I'm like, you know, sort of doing my best not, but they get very stressed very quickly. And also you understand why they have to set up these systems of absolute control. So it's pens, it's gates, it's people with sticks, it's kind of pushing a noise, and you have to, because they're big, powerful animals, especially cows, and you have to, otherwise it just wouldn't work. So they're tough places.
Yeah, we've just released a dairy investigation. Like, it's I mean, it's so heartbreaking to see the reality of like what's going on in the dairy industry in general through a screen, and like I can't even imagine how it feels knowing that, you know, obviously now you're vegan, and like when you were 10 you didn't know, and that's fine. But like having that kind of like on-hand experience with an animal that's gone through the dairy industry is quite heartbreaking. It's scary to know that that's going on right now, like in this moment. Yeah. So I think that is quite hard. But I think that's like the most interesting thing to me, that like the auction houses are going on, and it's a place of work.
Yeah.
And like for a lot of these farmers, I guess it's like also their companionship and community, isn't it? Really?
Very much so. And you pick up on that when you go. I mean, my dad still goes on a Friday to Tame Market, as he used to run it, and he goes because the old boys are there, and you know, that's just part of it. I mean, I wander around. Sometimes I've been around there and I've taken a bit of video, and I just not that I want to do anything about it, because it's just that's not going to serve my potential in it. Because I've got to stay with this community, because I do get to talk to them, but I do it just to bear witness, and I do it just to watch the sheep and how panicked and stressed they are. And of course everybody says, "Oh, hey boy," and it's like everybody's just getting on with their lives. This has been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, hundreds of years, and then that goes back to thousands of years. This is just a narrative that's been building over time, and it's just very normalised. And the very stressed animals are not even considered. There's just it's completely been eradicated from the consciousness of the people involved.
Yeah.
And
it's really sad that like normalisation, but we can talk about that with any other issue, like normalisation of society, you know, develops. I'm a woman. I wasn't allowed to speak or have an opinion really. And, you know, now I am. And like, I do think that animal agriculture is going to have to adapt in that way. Like society will adapt and will change. Fingers crossed anyway. But you are seeing like, you know, Olive.
I've just found some hay.
You are finding like an increase of like more and more vegans appearing. Like you can see it in supermarkets. You can see it out on the streets. You know, it's really important. It's good to see that. But obviously those communities are so tight knit. So it's how do we help those communities to make that transition? That's the real question.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, there is fundamentally what you're dealing with is that this is, you know, this is food. We're providing food, and you know, and that's what we do, and we do it as best we can. And there are cruel people. There are cruel people. There are cruel vegans, you know. It's like it's people that treat people and other things badly, There are farmers that aren't cruel in the context of their life, and most farmers, I'd say, are not cruel. Majority are not, and I think it's really important for people to understand that in the context of their world, they're not, and they do their best, but they are so stuck in an absolute narrative, and they're just trying to make something work, and it's tough as hell. I mean, this is hard work to look after just my little lot here. So yeah, I have lots of empathy. Yes, I would love people to sort of see what I see and feel how I feel, and I do get glimmers of that when you talk to people. But yeah, it's a whole community, and they're very supportive. They really help each other out, and it's nice. I quite like being part of it because I feel as though I am part of it. It's also nice to be able to say, oh, and my lot are just living out their life. And I think that is quite a powerful voice to have, even if it's just a fleeting moment, if you like, of me just mentioning it, because they go, oh, yeah, and it clicks. And this is a slow burn. This is not going to happen overnight.
Have you had any really nice responses when you tell people, or just even actually a response that sticks in your mind to that?
I do, and there's a farmer up the road, and I've had lovely chat out in the field. He's doing some work out, some drains out in the field, and and he used to work this land, and he knows Daisy, and he really loves his animals, and in the context of his life, and he feels it's very important to sort of maintain the bloodline. And yes, of course, I can argue that, but he looks after them. He keeps on to his older cows and gives them a life and all this sort of stuff. But I just listened to him, and he was more kind of like, oh, you wouldn't like what I do, and it's like, well, I actually, I'm not criticising you at all, but I listened to him a lot. But then eventually, after literally an hour, and a nice summer's evening, we were out and we were able to stand out in an evening. I said to him, because he was saying, oh yeah, talking about the cows, I was asking his advice, and then I said, if it was an option, I said, if you could just look after your cows and you didn't have to send them off and you didn't have to put them on that lorry, how would you feel about that? And him and his son was there as well, and they both went, oh yeah, that would be amazing. And they just had that moment of and it was just an absolute genuine response. I went, oh, that'd be lovely. And it was a very poignant moment for me, because I don't push the agenda, because I don't need to. They know they're not stupid.
Yeah. I guess the thing that is really important when talking to the vegan community about the farmers and stuff, and I think I've done a lot of work on this because I've worked with groups that talk to farmers and try and not villainize them, is that these farmers are stuck in a lot of the time it's just they inherit their farm for their family, this is what they've done, this is their life, this is their land, this is their home, their house is on the land. So a lot of the time they do feel very stuck, and it's not really an option for them. Although there is an option out there. There is an option to be kinder and transition to a plant-based, land. I don't even know if that's possible for all land, because I know there's issues with soil and stuff. But is that something that a lot of farmers have expressed when they hear about your story, or?
Well, I mean, there are some. It's that conversation is quite difficult, because first of all, you've got to get through the kind of the basic notion that most of our calories need to come from animals, and they're providing that. So there's, and also I think that the generational thing, I think that there is that people just want to sort of improve the system that was left to them. So I think that there is just a natural entrepreneurial kind of desire in a lot of farms. They just want to make this better. Let's make it more efficient. And of course that's supported by government and all the rest of it. So take away the animals and that relationship. It's just humans who have been left a wonderful opportunity, like land and all this sort of stuff. They want to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And so there are some farmers that have transitioned. There's one. I was part of stock-free farming for a little bit, and there's this an ex-dairy farmer who's now sort of growing cereals, but he's gone all the way. He's quite a rare being, because he did cultivate that sensitivity, and he's sort of mainly vegan himself now. But yeah, it's about people's individual, personal stories, and they are rare beings. So for people to really focus on this, there has to be so much on a political level, there has to be so much on a financial level that happens for people to go, actually, this is a viable option, because at the end of the day, they're left with a business.
Yeah.
And they go, well, how do we make this business work?
Exactly.
And the animals just are the business. And transitioning to a plant, I mean, this land here, it's heavy clay floodplain. Yes, we could grow crops, but it's permanent pasture. That's a whole other thing as well. So there's legally, it's grazing land, and you can't use it for anything else. So the subsidies, the financial support are for maintaining it as such. And so therefore the only thing to use is animals. I mean, yes, I have a vision that, the way ahead is that farmers are supported to become sanctuaries, but the government aren't going to do that. The vegan community have to do that. And that's another whole thing. It's like the money that's required. I believe it's out there, but people have to. I don't mean this in a critical way, but I think people do have to wake up a little bit to the reality of this.
I think there shouldn't be so much of I personally think this as well, like this is my thought, but I don't feel like there should be a us and them with anything, because this is
Thanks, Olive.
Olive, you're sabotaging us.
She's
Thank you, Olive.
keep us on our toes.
Yeah, I just don't think there needs to be an us and them with the farmers and vegans and all that stuff. And I think the vegans make that separation and the farmers make that separation a lot of the time. Like, I definitely know that in the circles that I mix in, there's a lot of those with farmers, like with a H, harmers. Like that's a very, very common name. And, I think we can only reach a solution if the vast majority are in agreement, and that means that we have to band together and find a solution for all. And that solution for the planet, for the animals, and for us is like transitioning to a plant-based food system, surely. I mean, there's science there that backs that. So that's interesting. But anyways, we've divulged a bit on that.
Well, no, I think this is so key. We have to. I think it's just a delusion that we can separate ourselves and cause this sort of divisive kind of situation. Farmers are the answer to everything, and at the moment everybody's stuck in the animal agriculture system, and the lobby is there and all the rest of it. So something has to shift it. And my fantasy is that there's proper funding that's not going to come from government. That literally farm by farm we give people a viable option. And at the moment it's kind of like, what do we do with the animals if we're going to transition to a plant-based system on your farm? Well, I guess we'll just have to send them off. And that's actually accepted by even vegan organisations, and I don't think that's okay. I think that if they knew they could keep hold of their animals, at least to see out their lives, they would love that. But that is the bit that needs to be funded. And you just do it. Just imagine a farm with that
they
story.
They lose their profit, don't they, once they are not like...
Yeah, totally, yeah. So you have to support...
From a business perspective,
but, I mean, if they're one farm that has been supported in this way, it wouldn't take that much money. All the money that gets poured into this and that and God knows what, there's big organisations and people that, buying the T-shirts, there's millions of vegans out there. I don't know of one farm that has been supported the farmers to become a sanctuary, other than farmers who have made a shift in their own emotional, spiritual life maybe, and they've become vegan and they said, I can't do this anymore.
There's a group that's just founded, it's called Vegan Support the Farmers. I think they literally only founded like last month or something, but it's been a work in, I know the person behind it, and she's been working on it behind the scenes for like years, like doing loads of studies about like agriculture and how we can support them. And like their main values are obviously, yes, to support the farmers, definitely, thank you, Olive. I got a little nibble on my foot. Partly to support the farmers and stuff in terms of like their day-to-day life and how they can, assess their land for readiness to a plant-based food system. But it's also to support them with mental health. Like I think they're trying to fundraise £100,000 to raise money to help farmers with their mental health, because that's a major issue.
Yeah.
Like, it's a major issue.
Hey, mate, you're right. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Just
yeah. No, he's the landlord. Yes, he owns these fields and I rent them off him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to your trial did a little bit. We skipped along in my clown, but that's fine. Wanted to talk a little bit about you said your granddad was a butcher and everything.
Yeah.
Now I've not had any conversations with butchers, but I've seen them speak on like interviews and stuff like that. And that one of the topics I saw it brought up recently was that local butchers are better than if you buy from a supermarket because they know that their animals have come from good farms. Now, is that a trope that I don't believe that there are such things as good farms, because even if you're looking after your animal properly, you're still sending them to slaughter at the end of the day. So I don't think that's ethical anyways. But is that a trope that is very much believed in like the butchery
yes.
community?
Oh, yeah, and in the countryside community, there's a few sort of like local meats. There's a farm up on the hill, Brill village, just up here, and they've Borstal meats, I think they're called, and it's on the village Facebook thing. Oh, this is where you should buy your meat. And you can see the cows, the Dexters or whatever they are. I think and I think they even slaughter them. I'm not sure if they slaughter them on site. I'm not sure. But yeah, a lot of people. It's sort of stages that people go through. They go like, yeah, well, that factory farm is terrible, but locally sourced or organic, and all these sort of things. And yeah, it's all the end. Nobody's asking the animal in this, Oh, are you okay with being organic? Yeah. Is it okay with you, or free range? All these. So yeah, I think that's we always get back to that. But yeah, there is. I think all these things make it easier for people not to deal with it.
There's so much humane washing.
I'm getting
nibbled.
I'm getting my toes nibbled. She's in a frenzy at the moment. I'm
trying not to kick her as well by accident.
She's kind of. I think she's nesting. Yeah, I think she's nesting, and she's doing this. She grabs bits and she goes and piles them up.
No, that's not it.
She decorates.
Nice.
She really does.
She's getting ready for Christmas.
Yeah.
No, I think that is really integral. Like whenever I do outreach, you will always get someone say, "Well, I just buy my organic meat or RSPCA assured or." Whatever, Red Tractor assured or whatever scheme that they've got on. But there's so much humane marketing and humane washing that my belief is that that's who's the real kind of like villain, if we want a villain in the story. The people that are putting these marketing schemes on them, because they're obscuring the reality of like the individuals that could make a informed decision either way. That's my feeling on it, but I don't know if that's something you agree with. Yeah,
informed decision is something I hear quite a lot, and it's like, well, people have got to base their choice on what, and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it's all sort of marketing. Yeah. Everybody's decision is being based on what they're told by an industry.
Yeah, exactly.
And so yeah, that's the reality for everything. But yeah, the meat industry is a big, powerful industry. But yeah, even organic, organic vegetables can be grown using animal byproducts. That's the reality as well. It's like it's impossible to be vegan. We try our best, but there's no way you can be truly, fully wholly. So yeah, everybody tries their best. And I guess if people, if there's a consciousness about, well, I'm concerned about the welfare, so I will buy locally sourced. And yes, it's not as bad as a factory farm. At least there's some level of consciousness there. And I think we have to be grateful for that. It's not what you and I might want, but we don't live in a perfect world. We're far from it, actually. And it's a process and a journey, and we have to be grateful for small mercies. And we have to keep working at it and keep educating people. And, but yeah, I personally, local meats, organic, it's just sort of slowing everything down. But if it's bringing into consciousness, at least that person, it'll be easier to, maybe a little bit easier to have a conversation with, and maybe help them to the next level.
Yeah, 100%. Your vegan journey wasn't direct. My vegan journey wasn't direct. I was veggie, then went back to eating meat, and then went fully vegan. So I went all over the shop. I don't actually know many vegans who made a switch overnight fully. I know a lot of vegans that made the switch overnight at the end, like you and I, we made a full 100% switch, but it took us like years to make that choice. And so I don't know, like my mum, like I came home from Easter this year, and my mum's a meat eater, and I asked her, you know, how was Easter or whatever, and she was like, oh, I couldn't buy lamb because it was a baby. And that was a big thing. I was like, whoa. But I had to like feign like surprise. I was like, that's cool, Mum, that's cool. But in my head, I was like, oh my God. And those little changes, even though, yes, it doesn't change, like, you know, she's still eating animals. It doesn't change, like, animals are still dying for her to eat. But she's made a little, like, compassionate choice there that then in the end, maybe she will go fully vegan at the end of the day. And that's the thing that you're talking about here with, like, all these locally sourced meats and everything. I don't think we should push people to them. I don't think that's that ethical at all. But I think if someone's already making those choices, maybe they're open to having a conversation about veganism as a whole.
Exactly, and we need to sort of let's be happy for that, but not
congratulate it.
Yeah, it's not like I mean, look, my mother's birthday yesterday, and I go to my sister's, and you know, my father again from the background, he the life he's had. But my sister makes a fully vegan meal because I'm there, and it's that. And they went through the whole phase of like, oh God, panic, and now it's just like normal, and they enjoy it, and they talk, and it's just great food, and have a mushroom Wellington it was, and it was all just lovely, and it stopped being an issue, and this is a family that, you know, my childhood was paid for by the meat industry, and there we are. My dad's not feeling, you know, abandoned or got at, so this is generational kind of change, little shifts, and it's just we all want it to happen tomorrow, but it's not tomorrow, and it's a slow thing.
It is a slow thing,
and that's why we've got to just exercise as much empathy and compassion, even when we just want to sort of just scream and shout, because the screaming and shouting mainly, I mean, there are times and places, there are extreme situations where action has to be taken, and there's some incredible beings that are able to do all that stuff, and organisations that do that stuff, but most people aren't. And I think that for the rest of us, we've got to be gentle and understand that human beings, we are the worst for change. This lot take change like that. Okay, all right, the next day they'll adapt. We don't. We don't. We take generations to change, and you have to understand that. However difficult it is, and upsetting it is.
It is difficult with that stubbornness and everything, but yeah. Anyways, let's talk more about Amberwood Animal Sanctuary. We've gone a little tangent about beliefs as being, but it's always interesting to hear like another person having that opinion, and you've obviously got more like in touch opinions than I do. So tell me the story of Amberwood's Animal Sanctuary. How are we here today?
So I had an acting business in London I built for 20 years, and that's what I did. I taught up until COVID happened. And I basically, over the 2 years of COVID, I eventually had to sort of come to terms with liquidating the business. There's no way we can recover from it. So I lost my business basically. I had a life set up around being able to, that supported me having a cottage that I own, still own just, paid the mortgage and all these sort of things. That all went. So I was desperate for some work, and I reached out to a lady I've met who happened to be a farmer, or her father was a farmer, to see how she was. I'd met her through a song circle that I was holding, because I've been involved with, healing and all these sort of things, and I've met her there, and she had been through loss herself. And she said she was desperate for help because her father had just passed. So I said, okay, well, I'll come and help you, pay me a few quid. And here we go. And that was 2.5 years ago. So I got here, and then, there was the 10 cows, there was 20 odd sheep. But I was just helping, mending fencing and just generally clearing up. But then I started to think, I wonder if I could raise money maybe I could maybe this is the opportunity that at some level I've been dreaming of. And then I just asked her, how about I try and raise money, I buy them off you, because I know you need money, trying to help her in a way. And she said yes. So yeah, that's what happened. I mean, we're still in that process. there's still, I did borrow the money to buy the cows and the sheep that were here. And then, of course, I went in, this is what I'm doing. I'm setting up a sanctuary, and there's a lot of other things that have happened since. But that's basically how it happened. It was just sort of circumstances. Loss, her loss, my loss, coming together, and there we go. It seemed like it was a good fit. But now I'd be just still hello to Mick. He's a brother. So he's the son of the farmer, and he owns part of it. She owns a building. So I rent the buildings off her, and I own the land off him.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. But we're still in process of that. I still owe a lot of money, but they're somehow allowing it to happen. But it's, again, talk about farmers. I mean, they're definitely not vegans, but they like what I'm doing. They are embracing this. They're making this possible. And I think they like the idea that a truck's not coming here and taking animals away. I think there's a healing going through. This place is going through a bit of a healing, I think, and I think this seems to be part of it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, I don't think you just mentioned that, but you mentioned before that it used to be a beef farm. Yeah. And you rescued 10 cows from, is that right? Well,
the 10 cows that were here, so the farm, Joe was keeping them on in case she wanted to get back into it. She had already sold the rest of the herd because she needed to raise money. Her father had died, and that was just the way it went. I think probably had about 60 odd or 50 or 60, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly. But she kept 10 and 3 older cows to sort of look after the young heifers.
Yeah, now
7 young heifers that were here.
Tell me a little bit more about that one, because that's something you were talking to me about that I actually didn't fully know. I didn't know that farmers sometimes kept older cows. Just talk me through.
Yeah, well, actually, there's several I've met recently, all for friends of Joe, and they've come and helped out with various things. They keep older cows, they get very attached to them, and they keep them on, and they let them live out their lives. They help them keep control of the younger ones as well. They become the matriarchs. Daisy here definitely is a matriarch. I mean, she's the absolute sort of boss. And so they came in 3 weeks ago from the field, so I know when they want to come in because Daisy starts waiting at the gate, and then the rest of them start waiting at the gate, and then I open the gate and they all come in and follow.
The boss of you as well.
Totally. But they're all. I'm just the servant of all, and that suits me. But yeah, so it's a system. It's part of a system. Now, of course, a factory farm's not going to work like this. Big, they don't give a damn. They're just profit based. But no, so they're more traditional, small-scale farms which aren't supported at all or very minimally. They would have those sort of systems going because it would help them. And the farmers have a relationship with those animals as well.
That's interesting because I think like farmers, like we were saying before, are painted as like loving their animals as a profit. I think like loving the animals until the time of slaughter, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. And I think that can be quite a difficult thing for people to understand. How can you love something that then you're going to send to slaughter? But it's interesting to hear that they actually do keep some cows to help them with the herd. Like that's really interesting because it does mean that actually there are some individuals that they just can't bring themselves to send off.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, and I've heard this a lot as well. It's like, and there's a sheep farmer up there as well that they hate it. They there's a lot of sadness. And again, people won't understand that. But in the context of these people's lives, that is significant. And they probably in a way would like to live in a world that they didn't have to do that. Although we then get back to this whole notion that we eat meat. Humans need meat to live, and they're providing a service, and that's really important to acknowledge because that's how it's seen. And yes, meat is nutritious. Who can deny that? But it's not necessary.
No, and you get nutrients from other things as well. That's the thing. So
you can survive without it, but that's not. That's another whole level of Olive. Come on.
Olive's gone for the camera.
Come on. Back here. That's it. I know. Probably getting a bit bored now.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. So the pigs weren't here.
Olive, yes.
So maybe to start with Olive.
Olive was the first. Yeah, I got, but there's a whole sort of network of sanctuaries. Olive, hold on.
We need to rescue Olive from the camera.
Hey, Olive, come on. Olive, come on. Oh, what's this? There's this. What's this nice? Yes. There we go. Back to having a. We can probably give you a bit more. I don't want to. We've got all sorts of equipment. We know. Yeah. So there's a network of sanctuaries that people that inform sanctuaries of one animal needs help, and I've got a relationship with the farmed animal sanctuary at Stratford. Stratford upon Evesham, and so I was called by Jan, who was the founder of that. She said, "Oh, I've heard there's this pig. I think it's over your way, and it's in a garden in the back of an estate somewhere, and they're trying to find a home because they can't cope with it anymore." And I just thought, well, okay. And with all of this, it's just been like, okay, it's just you just take the plunge. And so I drove up there with my friend. And I put some straw in the boot of my car, and I've never touched a pig before in my life.
You had a pig in your boot.
And then there she was, running around. And she was half the size. She was a fraction of the size she was. She was a year old, but it was a mud pit. It was awful. There were kids and dogs, and Olive, who was there squealing around, nipping me, and we had to get her in the car. And so I just had to just grab her, and they're so heavy and squealing, and I was like shaking. I was fearful because she was nipping me, and I'd never touched an animal like this before. And I just carried her through the house, into the car, put her in the boot, shut the boot, and we drove back here and I put her in the barn, and that's the first pig I got. And she settled, but as soon as she hit that dry straw in the boot of the car, she just flopped home and went to sleep. But now this was like, gosh, I don't know how long ago now, year and a half, I guess. But she doubled in size very quickly, and she's such a character. She's absolutely gorgeous. And so, yeah, I've got 5 now. I've got all of them rescued. There's 2 older pigs that were they weren't in a bad situation, but the woman was going to get rid of them. She was going to send them off unless she could find a sanctuary. And you quite often get little small holdings that they are producing them for meat, but they prefer their older sows not to go to slaughter. They'd like them to go to a sanctuary. There is a whole there's layers of animal agriculture, from the absolute extreme factory farms right down to very tiny little things. And they're old so-and-so. So they were trying to find a sanctuary. They couldn't find a sanctuary because they're so big. I didn't know how big they were. And
this is Mabel
and Bella, yeah. And so I turned up with a friend who had horses on the farm here. And she had this lovely horse box, an air-conditioned horse box, and she's lovely, and she offered to sort of to give them a lift. So we turned up at this place, and there's these 2 massive pigs. But yeah, we got them back, and so they came, and then I was told by the owner here, I said no more pigs, because it's like and they said the horses and pigs don't get on very well, and she's got a bit of a livery thing going. Yeah. But then Piglet and Pooh, I was given a call by another person. They were desperate for these 2 piglets that had been rescued off a commercial farm, left for dead, because their mother rejected them, so they literally were just left for dead, and they wouldn't have been alive the next day. But she asked if she could take them. She took them, bottle fed them. She kept them for 2 or 3 months, but then they started to get bigger. And she reached out through the Sanctuary Network. I got to hear about it, and of course I promised everybody no more pigs. But then I ended up taking these 2. But I took them to my cottage first. Okay. So they came there for a few weeks. But that they soon outgrew that. And I just said, well, I've got them now, so I'm bringing them on there. And that's how they got there. And these 2 are just, they're Piglet and Pooh. They're my babies. I feel as though I have been their sort of parent. They come and chat to me. And so I've I got them at 3 months. And now they're, a year and a bit. A year and a half.
Oh, we gained another little visitor.
Oh, this is Jemmy. Yeah. Hey, Jemmy. You're right. Look, and everybody ignores Jemmy. You're going to come up. Come on, Jem. Come on, Jemmy. Come here. Come on, up. Come on, good girl. Up.
No.
Oh, hello.
It's too high.
So Jemmy's part of the family as well. Yeah, she's mainly ignored by everybody, although she tries very hard to herd everybody. But the pigs completely ignore her, but she's obsessed with them.
Oh, bless her. And she came with the farm.
She was Joe's dad who passed, and and her mum is just literally just passed as well. That was Jemmy's, it was their dog. But she's, I think it's good having me here because she can do what she does naturally. She's got animals and luckily she doesn't stress them out. No. So she's just part of the...
So we're trying to herd the sheep earlier.
Well, she does try, and they kind of play the game a little bit, but then they butt her. They kind of push her away. Yes. Yeah.
Bless her.
Yeah.
And you said the sheep,
yes.
Most of them were here, is that right?
Most of them were already here. And again, Joe would have eventually got rid of them and they would have been sent off to slaughter. So in a way of kind of, I'm not, unlike a lot of sanctuaries that do those most incredible like rescues, I haven't really. I mean, Piglet and Pooh, that was a bit of that. I just don't have the setup and I don't have the knowledge. But in some way, I've rescued them from going back into the food system. So in a way, they've all been rescued. So some of the sheep I have though, there's a couple that wandered onto some land. They escaped from some farm somewhere. And they walked onto some land owned by a man whose daughter was vegan. She kept them for a while, but then she said, I can't, it's not realistic that I can keep them. So she, again, the sanctuary network, I got a call. There's 2 sheep over your way somewhere. Could you? So I get in the boot of the car again with a friend from Aylesbury Vegans, and we go, and somehow we got these 2 enormous girls in the back, and they're a year old, but they're gorgeous. You can meet them later. And literally in the boot of the car, and got them back here, and they became part of the flock. There's last Christmas, there was a local farm. There's Shelley, who's very vocal, and she's very friendly. She's got an overbite, right out, and she can't. So she wasn't going to be able to eat short grass. So the farmer's going to cull her. Okay. Cull is kill, because she wasn't going to be efficient enough. But one of the horse ladies here, who's also a farmer, she said, I'm not, and then she had some pet sheep herself. She said, oh, that's not going to happen. So she took her and she said, Mark, would you could you take her on the sanctuary? So of course I took her, went in the boot of the car, and in came Shelley.
The boot of the car, seen so many animals.
Shelley came, and then unbeknownst to me, Shelley was pregnant.
Oh.
And so in April this year, she had a little lamb, and suddenly I arrived in the morning to sort of feed and all the rest of it, and there was this, it was in the afternoon, that was it. I came back to do the checks in the afternoon, and there was this bleating. And there was this little lamb, and it's quite crazy. I went through this whole thought process of like, where did that come from? How did it get here? Which field would it have escaped from? And I'm like, it's literally they've just been 2 hours old, and my head's going, how? And then I went, Shelley. And it was a moment. So I rescued Shelley and rescued Amber, who was born on the sanctuary. Yeah,
she's never known.
She's only known this, and so that's, and she's feisty and confident like her mum. So that was this beautiful thing.
That's so amazing to have all these stories. It's like, and like, you know what? I think you being able to just saying okay is something that every vegan would probably want to do. If I could take some turkeys and leave them in my like flat, I thought I would. Or like sheep or anything, but I think that unrealistic.
Well, I've had to really rein that in because now I've had to come off the grid now because I get asked a lot, and there's so many that need it. But you have to be tough. I've had to toughen up because if I'm in a situation, I'm already on the edge, literally because of just the money, no money, and the workload is just enormous, and I'm not earning any money. So and I'm starting to get volunteers and the rest of it, but to care for these in a way that is actually what I'd say is giving them the best possible life you can give them, it is a massive responsibility. I've got away with it. But if I take on more, then I jeopardize Olive's welfare and Piglet and Pooh and all the rest of it. So I've had to draw a line, and then the vision would be to how I do want to be able to take on more, but how do I do that in a way that's responsible? And you just literally have to shut off from all the stories. I think it's endless.
Yeah, I know a few sanctuaries. Owners. Like one of my friends has just started a micro sanctuary in her garden, and now she's like had to buy fields, and it's a lot. And she gets asked all the time, and she's only like a tiny sanctuary as well. And it's difficult because there are so many animals there that you know, like you said, even from the animal advocacy, people aren't willing to send certain animals to the slaughter, or a micro pig that is no longer a micro pig.
Right. There's lots of them.
There's lots of like these little stories. They get asked consistently, so it's difficult to manage that and difficult to know. But I guess like for the ones that are here, they're having, you know, the best life they could possibly have.
Well, yeah, that's the idea. I mean, I would love. You always want more. I mean, everything. There's always more happening around here. I mean, the pigs area has been extended. The sheep are not all completely in the barn. I've made a little area outside. I'd like them maybe to all run around here a bit more, but it's not quite ready yet, because then that creates a whole other load of work and mess and stuff that then it starts to become like just so disgusting here that that's not good for their welfare. So there's a balance, but I'm always trying to expand things and improve things ever so slightly. And a lot of it is just learning on the job. It's just knowledge. I mean, the sheep have had a tremendous problem with foot rot. You know, it's been horrific. But I haven't noticed a limper, because that's the sign you see them, you know, limping. You have to go and give them an antibiotic and it. But I've been managing the fields because I've been learning, and farmers. I've been getting information from farmers. Olive, come on, Olivie, come on, Olive, come on, good girl, back we come. That's it. Come on, have some willy.
She's got great recall, to be honest.
She's great recall. She come in the afternoon when she knows there's a carrot on the end. She'll come cantering. You don't think she can canter, but she can canter.
Got better recall than something.
yeah.
That's my foot.
But I get advice from farmers. They want, really offer help and want to help out. So yeah, but you know, managing all these things, it's a lot. So
yeah.
You've got to sort of be realistic about this. I mean, I think there's a lot more potential. Again, it's funding, it's money. I think that there are landowners that would be happy for people to have sanctuaries on their land. I think there are farmers that partially might want to sort of downsize, rent out. All this is the direction I want to take things in. Is how do I reach these people? How do we expand the amount of sanctuaries around that starts to become more into people's consciousness, that actually it's not just a given that the animals that you see are for the table. Maybe they could be sanctuaries. And I think there is potential in it, but it does come down to money.
So that leads me on to the next question, and probably one of our final questions. What's the future for Amberwood's Animal Sanctuary? What's your hope? Don't collapse the hay.
She's on a bit of string at the moment. She's trying to pull the bales out. Olive, no, that's not good for you. Come here, sweetheart. Come on. That's not good for you.
I pulled it. Confiscating that off you. So what do you think the future is for Amberwood's Animal Sanctuary? What do you feel like you want to achieve in the next 5 years here?
Well, first of all, I think I just need to find a way of sustaining this financially. I really struggle to raise money. It's not a natural thing for me to ask for money. I've kind of got a bit better at it, but to be honest, the amount of money that I raise through donations is a fraction of what this costs. And at the moment, I'm just funding it myself off the back of a sale of my house, which hasn't happened yet. So basically, I owe a lot of money. I mean, tens of thousands. That's a lot, yeah. And I will be able to cover it, but then I've got a small amount of money that will just disappear. So yeah, I think I've got to try and find ways of upping the amount of donations. I mean, there's some people have teams of people that do this and volunteers. I just haven't had the time yet to sort of focus on that. But I also feel as though maybe that's not the direction for me so much, and I need to start some ways of making money as a kind of enterprise. So yeah, I've got ideas about how I can, make this a sort of a business, or the business side of it is just raising the money to the money for funding is coming through the business enterprise. So at the moment we're a community interest company, so that hopefully will make it. I do want to become a charity because I think Olivie, come on. Olive,
straw.
You want some more straw? Come here. Olive, what's this? Come on. Yeah, they're not stupid, She's going to go like, you lot, You lot, where's the good stuff? You must be tired soon. So yes, so that's part of the plan. I mean, I work for a builder friend. I was thinking maybe I could invest in getting a sort of an excavator and I could hire myself out. I was thinking of getting volunteers involved with not only just helping me here, but also us going and doing jobs in the community that people paid us, and that would raise money because that then gets us out into the community. Olive, she's a bit of a plastic head. Come on, Olive.
She's a bit of a plastic head.
They love plastic. Unfortunately. Olive, I should have. Trouble is, if I had bought carrots and nuts out, yeah, she's done. Come on.
Being a stubborn right now.
Come on. Yeah, I know. You're going to come here. Come on. Good girl. Come on. There we go. That's the reality.
That is the reality.
Yes.
5 years plan.
Yeah. So I think, and I've got some really nice volunteers now that are starting to help. But there is more support. So I think for me, I mean, I am going through the process of moving from my cottage onto the farm. I've got this caravan here. So, I'm in this sort of stasis at the moment, I think. But the plan is to settle and start to look at ways of creating revenues which aren't reliant on donations, but also try and develop the donation side of it a little bit as well. Because it has to be sustainable. And, minimum is, God, it's mud everywhere. I don't know. Minimum, I mean, basically, I think it's a couple of £1,000 a month. It's going to be the basic cost of running all this.
Yeah, I think people don't know like how expensive sanctuaries can be. Sanctuaries are expensive, full stop. Caring for animals. I mean, anyone who's even got a dog knows that it's expensive. So caring for multiple animals is expensive, and it's something that, like we were saying before, so many beings. My dream is to start a sanctuary, and actually, it's really, really expensive and difficult and tough. Your working hours, you're getting up early, doing the same hours that a farmer's doing, but you're not sending the animals to slaughter.
Yeah.
So it is tough. How can people get involved in volunteering and donation side?
Well, I mean, we all have our Patreon pages. We have every sanctuary has these we've got a website, and people do, but I think it's just numbers. I have ideas, and I'm sure a lot of this stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do kind of have ideas about having some kind of central funding resource for sanctuaries, because there are well-funded sanctuaries and there are sanctuaries that are desperately struggling. I'm desperately struggling at the moment, but I could become, once I've established things here and started little enterprises going, I could become a little bit more able to help other sanctuaries.
Well, you're right. You started founded in 2021, right?
Yeah.
It's only been going 3 years.
Yeah,
well, 2 years.
2.5 years. I got on the farm 2.5 years ago. So the sanctuary didn't happen for another 6 months. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of you're very at the early stages, which is exciting because there's so much that can be done here.
Yeah.
Which is great. And that's the crux of it all and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I do want to, I do want to get people involved here from an educational point of view. I think there's lots of, once I've got a space here that I can host people, it's like the potential of just inviting people around to have a vegan meal, and I'm well up for that sort of thing. Local people, and just again, because people always surprise me. People when you put it out there what you're doing, people are really interested and they want to support and they want to help. It's just getting it out there. All the elements of this take time and energy and effort. At the moment, especially this time of year, it's just all just trying to keep everything dry and then fed and warm, and at the moment me as well, sort of basically able to sort of keep going. So there's lots of those realistic challenges right now. But I think that what has to happen is getting to a place where I'm more comfortable and I have people to help me with reaching out to local people, because it's out there, but you have to get it out there, and that's where I need help as much as anything else. But I have this sort of faith. I just do. I mean, I just do, and you need to have that and faith, and just go well, I'll just do what I can today. And even if it's really tough, tomorrow will be different.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
We can only look after our own bubble and control what we can control, and that's that.
Exactly. And it seems to, so far, it's so far we're here, and they seem happy and clean. I mean, look, they're cleaner than we are. I mean,
that's the priority. I mean, I think I've been taking...
You're quite clean.
I've not done any work yet.
I cleaned myself up before you got here.
Nice. I just wanted to sign off really quickly. Thank you so much for coming on here. But if you want to support Mark, you can find him on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram at Amberwood Animals, and we have a website which is amberwoodanimals.com. There's sort of various options to donate on that. Yeah.
So you can read more about that, and Mark also posts lots of lovely updates every single day about what's going on in his sanctuary, and you can kind of keep up to date with all the animals and get to know them all. So yeah, I'm going to go get to know them now, but it's been really great to see you, and thank you very much for listening to us, and thank you for coming on. Thank you.